Trying to learn Notion but not sure where to start? In this video, I'm going to teach you all the beginner-friendly concepts you need to build almost anything in Notion. We're going to do it by creating something together, something that anyone watching a queer efficiency video is likely to need. A simple yet useful houseplant tracker, as I see you and your 37 wilty houseplants. Yes, by the end of this, you'll finally have a way of knowing exactly how long you've been neglecting to water your ZZ plant, but you'll also pick up all the key concepts you need to feel confident working in Notion. So kids, say it with me. What Notion things are we learning today? Fundamentals. It was so bad. Let's get started. Alrighty, we are going to start building in Notion, and I'm going to take you from literally no account to a complete houseplant tracker from start to finish, and I'm going to cover each concept for absolute beginners. So you're going to learn all the building blocks that you need to work in Notion. By the end of this video, you're going to feel really confident that you can build almost anything. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm literally going to create a new account with you on screen. I'm at notion.com. I'm in an incognito window in my browser, and we're going to choose Get Notion Free. Now this field says work email. I'm not going to use a work email, but I am going to put in my domain email, hello@queerefficiency.com. Great. And when it spots that I don't have an account yet, it's going to ask for a verification code. And so I'm going to need to go get that verification code and enter that here. If you by chance already have an account, it will prompt you for a password here, and that's the way you know if you've already set something up. So I'm grabbing this code from my email, and now it's going to send me through the onboarding. So I'm just going to enter my name. I'll give it a password. Don't need to add a photo right now. You can if you want. Note this checkbox here if you want the Notion marketing communications. I would actually say to leave that turned on because you do get some useful stuff in your email from the Notion team, especially after you first sign up. So then you're going to choose here what you're doing. We're going to choose for personal life, on my own, and then you can do these, but I'm just going to skip this for now. And then I'm also going to skip installing a desktop app, though I do use the desktop app for sure, but we're going to just stay in the browser. And this is what we have. This is the start point for Notion. Brand new, blank page, nothing in it. So, because I'm sharing my whole screen, I'm gonna turn on my cursor highlight tool so you can see it. And I'm gonna give you a quick walkthrough. So on the left side, you have this sidebar, which can be collapsed by clicking that button. When you collapse it and you move away, it will collapse fully. And then when you get near it, it will show back up again. And then in the center, you have a page. And this page, you can type anything into. So we're gonna get to that in just a second. But first, we're going to clean up our workspace. So I don't need any of this starter stuff. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to move these to trash by clicking on the triple dot and doing so, or right-clicking and choosing move to trash. Now it's yelling at me because there's no other pages in here and it defaulted back to the trash can because there's nothing here. So I'm going to choose add new and then empty page. This is what we're starting with. It is a completely blank page. And you'll notice in the left-hand side, I just have new page, which follows the name of the page here. So in this case, we're going to call this Houseplant Tracker. All right, so at this point, a lot of folks have reported that they feel pretty overwhelmed because there's so much that you can do. There's so many blocks in Notion, and it can feel like a lot. What I recommend for folks who are just getting started is make a quick list of what you want to create. Have a clear idea in your head and actually document it on the page of what you want to create. And then as you become more proficient in Notion, you won't need to do that anymore. You can just do it. At this point, I can visualize everything in my head, but I think it helps a lot to start with a checklist. So we're going to do that. You can do this a few ways. The first way that's really common is by typing /, and that will pull up this menu where you can select from any of these blocks. And there's a ton of stuff, and you see the list keeps getting longer and longer and longer, and it's crazy. Don't stress about it. We're not going to worry about that right now. We just want to start typing some text. We want a bulleted list, maybe a checkbox. I'm going to show you how to do those very simply. So you can just start typing, and you can treat this like any other word processing tool and hit return and type and type and type, okay? I'm going to delete that. I did that by hitting Control A or Command A on your keyboard and then backspace. Couple other nifty things. Some folks may be familiar with Markdown. It's a simple way of formatting things. You don't really have to worry about it, but there are some shortcuts that we can use that mirror Markdown for creating things like headings, like bullets, and like checkboxes. So let's do that. What we're gonna say first is ### space. And what that did, you'll notice it created an H3, a heading 3. Notion has 3 different levels of headings, an H1, an H2, and an H3. So this one, I decided I wanted an H3. Why? Because this is a habit of mine. I start with the smaller one typically and we'll work up, but you could delete that, come back here, type #, space, and then you get an H1. Just so you can see it, let's put in, I have a shortcut tool that inserts stuff, and this is hipster ipsum, which cracks me up. It's a lipsum garbage text generator, but it uses all these hipster terms. It cracks me up. So this is an H2. You'll notice that it's a little smaller, and this is an H3. Okay, and then we've got some text. Okay, so I did those, again, by entering hash, space, and then I could type the heading. This is 1 hash, this is 2, this is 3. Really straightforward. Now, what we actually want is we want a list of requirements, and then we want a space to actually build the thing. So we want to get rid of all this, and I can do it by clicking and holding, dragging, and hitting delete or backspace on my keyboard and starting from scratch. So I'm going to put in, we'll do an H1, that's fine, and we'll say requirements, enter, and then I want tracker. Ultimately, everything that we enter here we'll just delete once it's done, but we need a space for the tracker, and then we want to list our requirements. So what you could do, you could number it. And to do that really simply, you can just type 1 dot and space, and it will insert a list. And then when we go to the next line by hitting enter on the keyboard, it will continue numbering the list. Okay, that's useful. We can do the same thing with bullets by typing asterisk, so that's Shift 8 and then space, and then it will start bulleting, and we can do the same thing. Now you may be wondering, can you nest things? And you sure can if you just, as you're typing, type tab, and we can go back up to our numbered list and do the same thing. So I can have nested lists, and you can nest pretty far. You can dig and dig and dig. You can do the same thing with bullets, and you'll notice that it just starts repeating things after a while. But that's very handy and flexible. The last thing that we can do, and what we're actually gonna want, and I just hit enter a zillion times to get it to return back to the main line here, the thing that we actually want is a list of checkboxes. It would be super handy to be able to check off each item as we create it. So we're gonna enter open bracket, close bracket. And these are the keys on the keyboard that are just above the enter key. So we type those open, close, and space. And you'll notice that I now get a usable checkbox. Great, so let's come back here, click and drag to delete all this. I'm gonna leave the header there because we need it. And we're gonna start building out our list of requirements. So I thought this through in advance. And so I have a list of items ready to go, and I'm gonna type them in for you. We'll talk about each one, what we want this houseplant tracker to do, but you might not have something this robust right at first. That's not a problem at all. Write out the things that you know, and things will occur to you as you build. Happens to me all the time. So what do I want this houseplant tracker to do? I want a list of everything that I have in my house. I'd also like to have a photo of each plant. So I can go around with my phone, take pictures, and have a picture associated with each one. I'd like to have some information in my list about how often my plants like to be watered and fertilized. So water and fertilizer frequency are another couple items that we want to do. I'd like to be able to track when I last watered and fertilized. Great, very simple. I'd also like to keep track of the health of each plant. And there's a few different ways we can do that. I'm going to show you one way, but there are others. And then I'd like to be able to track the plant's status. So things like this plant is dead, this plant is growing, this is something I want to buy. And then finally, I'd like to be able to see a list of my plants as a running list. And also, if I have a photo with each one, I'd like to be able to see a gallery. Okay, so those are the things that we want to do. We're not going to necessarily do them in exactly this order, but this is the list that we're going to work from. So let's get started. So to fulfill the first requirement, we could do, very simply like we just did, a list. Now, I showed you before how to do the asterisk space method, but if you wanted, you could type slash and type bullet, and you'll get a bulleted list. Now, something else that was handy that I just spotted in that menu, if I come here and select this list and then hit one of these handles, you'll see they pop up as I hover over each item. I hit a handle, I can choose turn into and change this into a numbered list, for instance. I'm gonna hit Control Z on my keyboard twice just because I'm gonna undo and go back to my checklist. So my first requirement is just list my plants. So I'm gonna list 3 of the plants that I know I have. ZZ plant, oxalis, lemon tree. Cool, I have 3 of my plants. So technically I have completed this requirement. Now, this isn't a great way because there's lots of other things that we wanna track with it. So we need to be able to put information within those items. This is one of the really powerful things about Notion. You can go deeper and deeper with pages. So we're already on a page here, but let's, instead of this list, let's turn this into a list of pages. And you'll notice that the icon changed here, and now I can click into it, and you'll see that I've got this breadcrumb where I had houseplant tracker, so that's this top level item here. And now I can dig in and go to ZZ plant, and I can start writing other things. So I could just start dumping things directly into here and just keep essentially a Google Doc or Word document on this plant and have the photo and all of those things. I'm gonna go back. I have a button on my mouse that I use to go back, but you could just go back like this. You also can use, as I did a second ago, I can use the breadcrumb to get around. Now, I will say, this is not the best way. Notion has better ways of doing this, and what will likely be the case almost every time you create something new, at least that's the case for me, you'll likely begin creating a database. You're going to want a place to store all of the information about whatever you're tracking or whatever you're doing. And if you want to include different properties about that, for instance, the photo, the frequency, the last tracked, the health, the status, which that's what all of these items are, they're various properties about whatever top level item you have, that's going to be your clue that you want to build a database. Database sounds scary. Don't let it. It's just a list of items and things about those items, properties about them. So let's say you had a shopping list, database, list of all of those. And then even if it was just a list of milk, eggs, blah, 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 and then a checkbox for each one, that's a database. Let's say it's a finance tracker. Okay, list of items that you purchased and how much you spent and when you bought them, database. You're going to use a database almost every time. Now, not every time. There's lots of use cases when you're going to just have a flat page and there's other things you can do. But in general, if you've got a list of things you're tracking and you want information about each one of them, database. So let's do that. We're going to put our cursor after the header and hit return. So I've got this blank space in between. Then I'm going to type /database. And you get two options. You actually get a bunch of options. Typically, when I create it, I create an inline database. So what does that mean? Let's do that. And you'll see I've got this new database. It's prompting me for a title, and then it has just a name and a spot to enter new pages. Just to demonstrate, let me show you this. If I click here and choose plus, you'll notice it inserts my cursor underneath here, and it starts with the menu. I didn't have to type /, and I'll type database, and we'll go database full page. You'll see the difference where it opened in a full page, and then it just listed as another item like these other pages down here. Totally fine. You could do it however you wanted. But I find that typically, I just want this database to be inline. You might be wondering, could I create a database as a root level item? Sure can. If you want to build that way, you can. Typically, for me, I tend to like to have a page and then have an inline database on it, or have a page and have a list of things, some of which can be databases, because it allows me to have flexibility underneath and around the database to do things like this, where I can make other notes and things like that around the database. If I click into this full page database that we just created, you'll notice that I can't click anywhere around it. And if I choose the title and try to enter anything below it, I can't do anything. The database is all, we've got that whole block and that's all it is. There are use cases for that, but in general, I tend to like having an inline database. So that's just what I gravitate toward. I would say start there. Insert an inline database. Might be wondering, can I convert them back and forth? You can. If I choose the settings handle here, I can say turn into page, and you'll notice that it converts to a page. I'm going to undo that. And then vice versa, I could choose the setting handle on this and choose turn into inline, and it will convert it back. So that's possible. So let's delete that. Really quick, you'll notice that the icon on the ZZ plant is different than the oxalis. The reason for that is this icon means that there's something entered into the page itself. Now, I didn't actually enter anything, but I entered essentially a blank line. Let's insert some text, okay? So now there is actually something here. We're gonna go back a level, and we can do the same thing for the oxalis. Great. So we'll go back again, and you'll notice that we have the ZZ plant with some text, the oxalis with some text, and the lemon tree is empty. Great. Let's move these into the database. Highlight them, drag them, and you'll notice where that blue line appears. If I let it go, all those items now pop into the database, and now they're part of it as well. I could have, let's undo that really quick. I could have, if I knew that I was starting with a database versus a list, I could just start with the blank database and start entering new pages just like that. Now, I'm going to enter a new page like this, and I'm going to show you something here. We're going to highlight all of our plants, and you'll notice that I have options now. I can either drag on top of new page where see how it's all blue, or drag below or above new page where it's got just the blue line. This will nest those pages within this item called new page. So if I let them go here and open this, now I have a page with pages inside of it. You could go infinitely with this. You can go as deep as you want. That's what she said. And if you wanted, like, you can make things really, really robust. This is actually something that Notion released their AI tools. We're not going to get into AI, but just so you know, Notion released their AI tools to help surface information that was really deeply nested, because sometimes it gets hard to find things when you go too far. It's hard to figure out where stuff is. So that's why they released both their robust search tools, but also their really robust AI stuff. So from here, if I wanted to get these out of here, I could undo it, or I can highlight. You'll notice this open in what's called side peek view. So let's close that. I'm going to open this again. You'll see when I hover open in Sidepeak, it opens here. I also have the option really quickly to open in full page by clicking there. And you'll notice that the breadcrumb now has a new level. But let's go back. In Sidepeak, I actually can highlight, drag, and move these back out here. And because I highlighted an empty row, that's why I got this empty line. So we want these as part of the database. So I'm going to now delete those extra items, and we have our plants. Remember that I had page content inserted here, and if I open it, I can still get to that page content, but there's nothing on the lemon tree because I haven't added anything. Great. So we can list my plants now, and we have it in a database. Now, something we should do from a best practices standpoint, there's a few things that I've skipped over that I want to go back and address. Anytime you create a new database, you should give it a name. If I only had the database on this page, I'm going to cut these out for just a second. So let's say all I was creating was this page called Houseplant Tracker, and then I inserted this database and gave it a name. Now they look the same, and it's confusing about why they have two names. The database is its own block, and it lives on its own, which I can expand to get to that full page view of this database. It's its own separate entity, separate from the page that it's on. I could leave this like this and just hide the database title. Great, that works. I tend to insert the word database at the end. Notion has gotten better about making icons that help spot things when you're searching for them. It's a little less necessary, so it's a habit that I'm still in when I name a database by inserting this word. I still recommend it though, because sometimes if you're linking to external stuff, maybe you get a little more advanced and you start working with an automation tool, or you're trying to link to other things. There's all kinds of integrations. Sometimes it makes it easier to spot your database from your root page if they're not named the same. So I like to insert the word database when I've created one. And then I typically do hide the title because let's say, for instance, I have multiple databases on this page, which is absolutely a thing. We're not going to cover relational databases just yet. That'll be later in this series. But let's say we had another one, such as let's create a database for location, right? And remember, locations database. And then we can tag our plants if we wanted in guest bedroom, primary bedroom, living room, whatever. Sometimes it's handy to have the names showing if I have multiple on a single page, but my preference is to hide the names, and then I can insert an item below and add my own heading like that. So that's my preference. We don't need any of this stuff. And that reminds me to bring back, we just ran into a small thing. I cut all that stuff out before and forgot about it, and I don't think it's the last thing on my clipboard. Oh, it actually is. It was still on my clipboard, but let's just say I did forget it and I couldn't get that back. What I could do is go to the triple dot menu up here, go to version history, and I likely would be able to see, depends on how much stuff, but I could restore old versions and get items back. I even believe that if I come here and copy from right here and now paste, it would paste it in. It did, and that's why it gave this all this one on it, because it's a copy. So we don't need any of that. We already have them in our database, but just know that that version history is there for you if you need it. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to work with our database to add these other properties. Okay, so we talked about the best practice of naming a database. I also want to do a couple other things that I do almost universally, which is deal with the way the page is structured. You can insert, if I hover up here, an icon and a cover. And this is just mostly for aesthetic purposes, but I like to keep things organized and I like to have that aesthetic represented. So I do a couple things pretty universally. When I'm building something like this that I know I'm going to use a lot, I tend to add a cover, and I almost always add an icon regardless, because I don't really care for this icon that's living here. So let's add an icon first. And you'll notice as soon as I click it, it populates with something random. There are these emoji, and there's a lot of them. I don't use them. This is something Notion rolled out more recently, these icons, because they're similar in that they're pictures, but they let you change the colors by clicking on them, and you get a set of colors. Whereas with the emoji, you just get the emoji, right? So for this, we're gonna just search for plant, and I'll choose this one and I'll make it green. Okay, so now my page has an icon. Giving things icons is a good idea, just generally speaking. So we'll be able to do that down here as we create properties for our database. You actually can give databases icons themselves as well. So if I open this in full page, I can do the same thing, icon and cover, to the database itself as well. So now we're going to add a cover, and it again chooses a random one by default. And then I can choose change cover, and you can either choose something from the default Notion gallery, which I never do. You could upload your own from your computer. You could grab a link, which I sometimes do. Or you could use this really handy Unsplash button to pull in a stock image from Unsplash. So we're going to choose that, and we'll choose houseplant. And I like that one. Great. And now we're going to reposition it, maybe right about there, and save it. Cool. So now this looks great. I have a nice icon that represents the page, and I have a nice aesthetic from my cover photo. Remember, I said I want to take pictures of all my plants for this tracker, so I absolutely could replace this with a photo of my plants when I wanted to. So that's an option as well. One other thing that we're going to do is we're going to change the width of the page. I do this almost every time I set up a database, unless it's a tiny little database. This is something I'm just a little fussy about. I kind of wish that Notion would make a change or allow you to hide this, but let me just show you something really quick. If I expand this super wide, you'll notice, see here, I'm getting this scroll bar along the bottom, and I don't like that. I find the aesthetic as I'm scrolling, and it's just there. It's obnoxious. I don't like it. Now, of course, I don't need a name property that's that wide, but as I add multiple properties, as we're about to do, I know that I'm not going to want that scroll bar to be there. This is just my preference. I do wish that Notion would allow you to hide the scroll bar, because if you just use your mouse wheel and hit shift, you're able to scroll. Let me give you an example. Let's add a text property and make this super wide again. I'm holding shift on my keyboard and just scrolling up and down, which is why I wish that there was some way to hide that scroll bar, but it's just not a thing right now. And I don't know if it ever will be. So let's delete this. And then what I want to do, this is the narrower view. If I come up on my page settings to this option here, I can choose full width. And this way I get way more space to deal with. There are some use cases where I just leave it narrower, but almost always when I'm working with a database, I tend to make it full width to give me this room to play without getting that stupid scroll bar that shows up and just kind of destroys the aesthetic of the page. Okay, so we've covered our basics. We've got a database with a few plants in it. Now we want to create these properties. We have a series of properties that I'm going to go through, and we have some functionality we want to do. So to add a photo, we can do that. To enter basic information, we can do that, but then maybe we want to be a little fancier with how we track our last watered and fertilized. So there's lots of stuff that we can build here, and we're going to do that right now by adding properties to our database. So first thing, photo of each plant, okay? We're gonna add a property, and you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of stuff. Notion suggests some things, which some of these I actually could see using, but almost never do I use the ones that are here. I tend to just do them myself. But I have a bunch of other items that I can select from down here. You'll get very familiar with which properties are available, and if you hover over the little question mark, it'll tell you what that property is for. So a photo of each plant, we want files and media, so that way we can upload a photo to it. So I'm just gonna rename this by clicking it and typing photo. And then this is, again, a practice to get into. Change the icon. The icons help your eyes figure out which property is which at a glance without having to read the title. It just makes it easier to interact with your databases. So change the icon. I highly recommend it. Do it while you're creating things, and you may need to adjust them as you go, but do it while you're creating things. It just makes it a lot easier. So we're gonna choose image and make that the image. Now you'll notice I didn't get that color picker. As a database property, the icons can only be this gray. Whenever you're doing it at the page level for the page icon, they can be that set of colors. So I'll go back here and you'll notice I get these colors, but for database properties, it's just this color. That's all you get. Maybe they'll change that in the future, but maybe not. Now I can hover over this, and if I can get my cursor in the right spot, I can hover over this little divider and you'll see that I can change the width of the property. I was doing that a minute ago, and that allows me to change how much I'm seeing on the page. For a files and media property, when I click it, it allows me to either embed something or choose a file. There is a maximum file size on free accounts, but it's pretty generous and most photos are not that large. Okay, so now I'm gonna upload a photo. I do have a photo of this ZZ plant. It's an old photo. I didn't specifically take it for this, but what I could do is choose a file by digging through my computer this way. Hey, look, it's me, it's my headshots. Or if I wanted, all I have to do is drag the photo on top of that cell. And it was a little hard to tell because I have it selected. Let's click off and let's try it again. You'll notice that as I hover over the cell, it lights up. So if I let go, the photo uploads and there it is. So now I have this picture of one of my ZZ plants. And so that lives there now. So now I have the ability to do a photo of each plant. Great. Now I want to be able to give myself some information about how often I should water and fertilize each plant. Lots of ways you can get this information. The easiest way, I think, is probably to just go to an AI tool. Notion has one, but it's not super included in the free plan. I think that other tools like Gemini or Perplexity might be better for searching because you can get information much more easily from the web. You could do it in ChatGPT too, but in any case, I would go to, I'm probably going to choose Perplexity, and I'm doing this off screen, and I could ask Perplexity, how often should I water and fertilize? And you could just fill in whatever the plant name is, AZZ plant. Okay, so it's generating this for me now. General frequency, water every 2 to 3 weeks, and then there's this information. So what I can do is I could do a couple things with this. Oh, look, Perplexity gave me a really handy table. So we probably will use that. First thing I could do, let's just copy this quick reference table and all the stuff in it. I'm gonna hit Control-C on my keyboard. What I could do is open this up, get rid of this text that I put here, and paste. And you'll notice, I wasn't even planning for this, but I'm like, go Notion. It actually formatted that table from Perplexity as the same table. This is an interactive table now where I can insert more rows, I can insert more columns, and interact with everything that's in it. So that's really handy. Maybe that's the way I want to do it. Maybe I don't need that header. So I could do that here and insert that information inline. What I really could use, honestly, is this how to know when soil is dry to the touch and only when actively growing every 4 to 6 weeks. It would be handy to have that at a glance. So let's create that. Let's add a new property, and we're going to add a text property this time. And we're going to say water frequency, and again, set the icon. And this is where, as you're creating things, you may realize, oh, I want to change this icon because maybe I picked this water icon, but I end up wanting that for last water date, etc. This is why you might want to change it. But for right now, we'll just choose that water frequency. And we can now click this and click duplicate because we want another text property. You could also just create a new one from scratch either way and change that to fertilizer frequency. And now we'll give this some other icon. I doubt there's any fertilizer. Yeah, there's no fertilizer icon, but we can do something plant related and choose, I don't know, this daisy. That's fine. So now I have these two text properties. And what I could do is take this, copy this here, paste that in line, and now I have this very simple at a glance view. So if I pull up this database on my phone, I could see it at a glance without having to click into each item. But if I wanted more information, I could expand it and grab it from the table here. Something else you'll notice that as the width of the column changes, it's wrapping the text, okay? Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want the column about this wide and keep these about the same width so they're consistent, but maybe I want this to not wrap and just truncate at the edge of the cell. I could do that by clicking the properties header and choosing unwrap in view. And this way it will truncate, but if I click into it, I can see everything that's there. And I like that better. I tend to like having all the rows be the same height, so I often do use that or try to contain the text within the size of the cell. But this is okay, we can leave it like that. So now we can track water and fertilizer frequency for every single plant. I could go down here and I could replicate that for the rest of the rows. And the nice thing is once you set it up, these are not really going to change. Your photo might, but your water and fertilizer frequency will stay the same. Okay, the next thing, we might want to track when we last watered it. So we could do that using more text properties and just type in the date manually, or create a new property and choose date instead. Give it a name and give it an icon. Now, this is one of those cases where you could give it a completely different icon, or for watering, you could make all of those icons the same. So any property related to watering your plants, give it the same water icon. So let's do that. And again, we could duplicate this and say last fertilized, and we'll change the icon. You may have noticed that Notion has been pulling our recent icons into this section, which is actually really handy. I use this all the time. So we'll resize these so that they are an appropriate width. And the difference between a text property where I can just type and a date property is when I click it, I get this calendar that I can then choose from, which is handy. I could also type it manually. You can add an end date. You can change the formatting for how you want it to show. You can include a time. And something that's handy, maybe you want a water reminder. You could set up a reminder and choose to get a notification from Notion on the day of the event, 1 day before, 2 days before, 1 week before. Cool. So we can do that now. Now, before we move on to plant health and status, I'm going to do something that's a little more advanced, but it's not hard at all. It's probably preferable not to have to enter the date manually because you want to probably be able to track it really quickly by just a click of a button, right? So if I'm going around watering my plants, it'd be nice on my phone to have this app up. It looks and works great on mobile. Have this database and just be able to, for each plant, to be able to click a button to say, I watered my plant, and not have to go through and do all the taps of choosing the cell, picking the date, and having to go through all that kind of hassle. So let's blank these out. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a button. That's a property that lives in a database. Now, there are buttons that live within a page. We're not going to cover that right now. We just want a button that impacts this row. So we're going to choose Add Property, scroll down and choose Button. And now this could sound a little more advanced, but in this use case, it's very, very straightforward. We're going to change this to Watered, change the icon, and you'll notice that whatever I set the name to be, it changes the button itself. Now, nothing is happening when I click it because I have to tell it what to do, but let's resize it and then choose the property and edit the automation. So it says when button is clicked, all we need to do is insert the date into the right field. Okay, not hard. New action, edit property. Which property do we want to edit? Last watered. And then we could choose time or date triggered. The only difference between the two is that this one includes the time and this one is just the date. I don't know why Notion doesn't make that a little clearer. So this probably should say date and time triggered, and this should just say date, because that's what this is. I like it with the time in this particular use case. So I'm going to choose time triggered and hit save. That's it. So now when we choose watered, it inserts the date and time. Handy, super easy. Okay, let's do the same thing, but for fertilized. So new button, edit the name, give it the same icon that we're using, edit the automation, new action, edit the property, last fertilized, time triggered, save, drag this so that it's an appropriate width. And now we have these properties as well, and we can test it there. And that will just update each time you do it so you can see when the last date and time was that you watered it. In the future, I'm going to do videos on automations, and there's lots of things that you could do with this to make it more robust. You could have a property that shows the number of days between today and the last time you watered it so you could see how many days it's been. You can also do this where you can keep a running log of all the times that you've watered and fertilized each plant. That would involve a relational database, and there's other things that you can do. We don't need to get into all that right now. This, I think, is super handy, and you could do lots of things with buttons. Let's just go back into this just for a moment and take a look at all the other actions that you can run. You can add pages, you could send notifications, you can do confirmations, you can open up other pages. You can, and then there's really complex things that you can do. If you want to edit properties, you can do whole formulas and things inside of this. Buttons can get really, really complex, but they don't have to. They can do simple things like insert the date and time. All right, I don't need this additional step I just added, so we're going to delete it and hit save again. And these are included for free. The automations that are here, this is something that's pro. These automations run based on a trigger on their own. So an example is we're going to create a plant health and plant status property based on what I set my plant health to be, change the plant status automatically. So that's something that comes with a pro Notion subscription, and I have it. I absolutely love it. I use automations on all sorts of things, but just know that that's what that's there for. These automations run on their own when they're triggered. All right, let's create the last couple properties. We're going to do plant health next. So let's create a number property. There's a bunch of ways you could do this. I'm actually going to show you both of them. Let's bring the number over just so it's easier to see. It's not way off the edge of the screen. Let's also create a select property, and I'll show you each one. For the number, we can name this health with a capital H, and we'll give this, I don't know, that one's fine. That gives me a health vibe, right? Sure, we'll call it that. Now, I'm going to name this health as well, and you'll see what happens. I can't do that. I can't name two properties exactly the same in a single database. They have to be uniquely named. Across different databases, not a problem. I can have a health item in this database and then have another database also with a property called health. Not an issue. Inside a single database though, absolutely not. They have to be uniquely named. Now, a way around that, you could just add a space and then you wouldn't really notice and it still works because technically those are two different names because they have different characters. We'll leave this icon just so we can tell them apart because ultimately I'm going to delete this. But let's just say we wanted to use the select property. A select property is a dropdown. So I can come here and I can add an option, or if there were options here, I could search for it. So let's say this one is good, and then we'll come here and we'll say average, and then we can do the same thing and we could say poor. Okay. Now that was one way of creating them, and then I could choose which one I want from the list. Alternatively, you can open the property, edit it, and then edit the options here, and you could do it back to back without having to click all around. One thing I will say is Notion inserts each new item above the last one, which I think is silly. I think they should be inserted after the one you just created. So when you do that, I tend to do them in reverse order, right? So if I wanted it to appear good on top, average in the middle, poor at the bottom, I would create them poor, average, good, but you can reorder them, not a problem. So it's not really that important, but just a quick tip. I also don't need these properties, so I'm going to delete them, and then you'll get a quick preview or you'll get a little sneak peek before we do it, of the fact that there are color options. So good, I'm going to leave at green. Average, I'm going to change to yellow. And poor, I'm going to change to red. Great, so now I can list what health my plant is in by changing the dropdown. Something else that's just worth noting, it doesn't make sense in this use case, but you can create multi-selects or convert selects to multi-selects and vice versa by hitting change type and going to multi-select. And what that does, it leaves the options, but it allows you to tag things with multiple options in a single cell. Lots of handy use cases for that. Like I said, tagging is a good one, but in this case, we only want it to be a select. So we will change it back. And then when that happens, it will only allow us to choose one. But we'll say good for this. That's one way of creating a health property. Another is to just use a simple number property and do it on whatever scale you'd like. 0 to 100, 0 to 10, 0 to 7, whatever you want. You could create a scale for it. So let's say we're going to do it as a 0 to 100 situation. That allows us to create a fun little addition to it. So let's say this ZZ plant is 90%. Now, this is totally subjective. You can track it however you want, but let's just say, I looked at this plant, it's really healthy, 90%. Maybe that's too granular and you just want 0 to 5. Whatever it is, you can set that scale up however you want. But we can come here into the number property, hit edit, and it gives us these other options of a ring and a bar. So let's choose ring, and this already has it by default to divide by 100. So as we change this, let's say 15, you'll notice that the little ring here changes how full it is. So it's a quick visual representation that's pretty handy, where it goes all the way up to 100. Now, let's say that this is too complicated and we don't want to be this granular. As I mentioned, we could change it to divide by 5 and have it go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where it fills in a fifth each time, or whatever you want. And you can change the color of the ring as well. There are other things you can do with number properties, which is why you'd want to use those over text, which is you can do all sorts of math on them. You can do various calculations that you can't do with plain text. You also can change the format to all different sorts of number properties. The most common one, number with commas, percent, and US dollar, or currency for wherever is right for you. And with that, you can see the cell behaves something like Excel or Google Sheets would, where you get this formatting on it. This is a relatively new option where you could choose the number of decimal places that you want to see. In this case, though, we just want to leave it as a number and we don't need the decimal places. So I have these two options. I'm going to stick with the numeric health and I'm going to delete this health property. Something to note, if you delete properties, you can come to the settings for the database, choose more settings, choose edit properties, and then go to recently deleted and you can restore them. I don't know how long Notion keeps these here, but you can restore them at least for a period of time, maybe indefinitely. I'm not 100% sure about that. Okay, so we have our health, and maybe we want to change this back to out of 100 and give this a score of 90. And then the second to last thing we wanted to do was to set up a status. You could do this using whatever method you wanted, either text. You could also do it with a select, a multi-select, or Notion has a dedicated status property. The way that this is a little different is when you click it, there are 3 categories of to do, in progress, and complete. So you can add different options inside of these, and I tend to like using the status property when I'm doing something with a status. So I'm gonna choose edit property, and then I wanna edit this. So not started doesn't really make sense in the case of a plant tracker, but maybe for to do, I might say to buy. I might not want that to be my default though, right? So every time I create a new item, it's gonna assign a status. I don't know that I want it to be to buy. So instead of that, let's change this to make in progress the default and instead call it growing, whatever. Now, in the case of done statuses, those probably aren't the happiest things for a plant manager. So one of our done statuses might be graveyard or dead or whatever, and maybe a slightly happier one is gifted. So I added those. Those are my statuses there. For a task manager, to do, doing, done makes total sense. So we have a default plant status of growing, and then we could change it to gifted or graveyard if it changes. And then if we have any ones that we want to buy, we could put them in the to buy status. Now, as I mentioned before, in a future video, I'm going to create an automation that based on the health of the plant, if I change the health to 0, for instance, meaning it died, the status can update itself using an automation. Now, note, as I said, that automation will have to come with a paid plan, or you'll have to get the template from me, which you can do. If you go to queerefficiency.com/beginner, you can download this template from me. If you get it from me and there's any automations that are in it, all those automations will come along with it and you can use them in free plans. You just won't be able to edit them. That's a big caveat, but they will work. So if you are in a video that has that in the future and you download it from me, those automations will work. All right, we have a couple extra items in here I want to clean up, and then I'm going to see if I can search my photos real quick off screen. Pretty sure I have pictures of these other plants, which I want. So we're going to add the photo of the lemon tree, and we're going to add a photo. Oops, can't do that because I have to click off this one. And then I'm going to drag in a photo of the oxalis, which is great. So now I have pictures of each plant. Okay, the last item in our checklist is to change between this list view, which is already here, or table view, and the ability to view things as a gallery. So views are really, really powerful. You can do different things with them. If I click this plus button here, you'll notice I have all these other options that I can do. I could choose a calendar view if I wanted to see when my plants were last watered. If I had a feature of this database that allowed me to track when the next watering was, I could see that on a calendar. There is a dedicated list view, which is a little different than table view, which is the default. So I'm going to add a list view just so you can see. I don't really ever use this view. It's pretty rare, but I have the ability in list view to turn on and off properties. And in this case, it doesn't make sense. So yes, we could set up a list view, but the way I said it before, table, that's what we actually created by default. This is a table view. All right, I don't want a list view, so we're going to delete that. What we do want, though, is a gallery view. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to choose plus, I'm going to choose gallery, and note this looks kind of dumb. So we want to fix it to not look dumb. Basically, what we want is a photo to appear here. Let's choose properties, choose layout, and then it's going to ask, where do we want the preview to come from? Right now, it's set to content, but we actually want photo. And those will now pop in, and I have the ability to reposition the photos if I want. And then I could choose to show other things about this. First of all, I can change the size of the card. I can choose to fit the image if I wanted, which obviously I don't want in this case. I can choose to show or hide the page icon, which is something we actually didn't cover. These icons are changeable, just like these icons are, and just like the property icons are. So if I wanted each one to have a plant, like the cover photo, I could actually do that in bulk by choosing all three. You can edit any property this way, incidentally. But if I come here and choose edit icon under this extra settings button, I can choose that icon and set it globally. So I can choose to leave that on or off. And then I also have the ability to toggle on or off other properties. So I could see the status here. I could see the last fertilized and watered. I also could see the buttons if I wanted. And I could use those buttons here and they would appear. So you have the ability to toggle on and off things based on what you need to see. In gallery view, I probably don't need to see anything, so I can leave it all off. And then I have the ability to open this up and you'll see that I can edit all the properties inside the card, which I also, since I've added all these properties, can do over here as well. So now I can toggle between list and gallery view and go from there. All right, there's one other thing I want to show you in this, and it's a way of keeping things clean. I tend not to like to have these items rooted in my menu. I find that it can get a little cluttered to have all these items under private. So what I typically do is I come here, I add a new empty page. I'll call this something like notebook or pages. I'll add an icon to it, do something like that. Then I'll add a database using slash commands again. We're going to do inline again. This is one of those weird use cases where I don't need it to be super wide. And we'll say pages database. You can hide that. And now what I want to do is I actually want to drag this into this database. So this lives permanently here, and now I can just add new pages here for new stuff that I want to create so I don't have a bunch of clutter. Now you might be wondering, what if I want to get to that at the root level? I don't want to have to dig into another menu. Okay, that's not a problem. We'll open this up and choose a little star icon, and it will favorite it. So I'll pull my own Notion account on here, and you'll see once it pops in, I have a whole bunch of favorited things, but then my pages item is here, and then I have stuff like we just created here. Now this is super fancy and there's a whole lot of stuff going on in this, but you now have a bunch of the basics for creating things in Notion, both from I just want to edit things in a document style to I want to track things in a database. Those are some of the key fundamentals that you need to start building today, because with the stuff that I've shown you, just the basics of setting up a database, adding properties to it, you can explore those basics a little more fully and create real things. Maybe you need a recipe tracker. Maybe you want to create a checklist for packing for travel. There's all sorts of things that you can do and you can just rearrange the stuff that I just showed you in whatever order to create those items for yourself. Now, I left out a whole lot from this beginner tutorial, and that's by design. I wanted to give you the building blocks to start so you don't feel overwhelmed, but this is just the first video in a series on Notion for beginners. So I'm gonna do other concepts in shorter chunks of videos. For instance, something I didn't cover was editing this layout and showing and hiding properties. So I'm gonna take just that concept and put that in a little video for you, and so you can go and just get the stuff that you're looking for. Automations are another one, more advanced buttons, formulas, roll-ups, relations. There's all sorts of things that we can do, but I didn't want to overwhelm you in this first video. So what I would encourage you to do is first, go to queryefficiency.com/beginner, and what I will do is I will make a copy of this template at the end of each video that I create, so you can either download the latest one with everything in it, or you can download it just with the stuff from that video. So that whole thing will live there for you. And then I do recommend that you continue along in the series because the rest of the videos are going to be shorter, depending on the topic. I mean, formulas can be pretty robust. Relations and roll-ups and things, those can be pretty robust. But I want to contain them in shorter videos so you can just go get what you're looking for. And those videos all live in my series, Notion for Beginners. So I will have that on the screen for you. You can get to that playlist really easily. I hope that this video taught you the basics of what you need and you feel comfortable to start building in Notion. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, help that you would like with anything, please feel free to drop that in the comments below. And if anything in this video was helpful at all to you, please hit the like button in YouTube. Tells the YouTube algorithm to keep showing my stuff and tells me what to keep creating. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next one. Bye for now.